All right, welcome everybody to the Low Castle, the last bastion of liberty. And I am here with the man himself, Connor Drigotas. Oh man, I should have. This is what I should have had. It's Drigotas, right? I'm saying that right, correct?
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah, you got it right the first time.
Okay,
That's ideal.
See, I told you, I'm nervous. I'm nervous. It's weird. You are the man when it comes to like finding jobs in liberty. Like, talk to people a little bit about just who you are, real quick. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, for sure. First, I mean, a huge thank you for having me on. I'm excited. I feel like I've known you for almost 3 years now, probably. Because we actually, I mean, I don't think you know this, but you are actually part of the story to Work for Liberty becoming a book.
Oh, really?
So I want to make sure that I circle back on that. But from the 30,000 foot level, my name's Connor Drigotas. I was born and raised in the state of Maine, and I've been in Pennsylvania since 2009. And I work for Liberty full time. And that's one of the coolest things I've ever been able to say. And that's something that I want other people to be able to say too. And that's exactly why I'm here to talk about my new book, Work for Liberty, and hopefully be able to help a lot of people chase after stuff they actually care about in their jobs.
For sure. So I guess I'd not heard that. How did I have anything to do with that?
Well, so back in 2017, I lost my job. Which was a really difficult time. I had been working in sales. I was selling staffing services. So I was doing 200 cold calls a week to various businesses, getting thrown out of the front door, given the hard nose. And I got laid off, and I found myself with a mortgage to pay, with, bills to pay, and no income. So
that's a scary, scary place to be.
It was terrifying, honestly. And, I brand myself, and I think it's true, I'm an optimistic person. So one of the first things that I did is, after I spent the weekend kind of thinking over where do I go from here, I realized that I had been spending all of my free time volunteering for liberty causes, whether that was campaigns, whether it was other liberty advocacy organizations. I was trying to start an advocacy organization, a super PAC that focused on Bitcoin at the time. And I realized, you know what? I am never going to take another job again that doesn't pursue purpose. And for me, that purpose was liberty and expanding liberty and fighting for liberty. Though I think what happened was I was a little overly optimistic, and I unfortunately found myself unemployed for 6 months. I spent 6 months eating away at my savings account before I found a job that I love, a job that I'm still at, working for a law firm that helps protect people's constitutional rights. Just a really fantastic opportunity. But I realized during that 6 months, I found tons of resources. I found links to job portals across the internet, hidden, not easy to find. And when it came down to it, I realized this could be something that other people could use. So about a year ago, I decided I'm going to put this together. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to jam it full of every single resource that I possibly can to help people. And that became Work for Liberty and became this project. So I want to touch base though too, because in 2017, when I was creating and trying to work on the Better Money PAC, you were one of the people who I connected with around digital currency, and your approach to, you were one of the few people who was open to building networks and building communities at that time. And I've always appreciated that about you, because one of the things that's very difficult when finding a job anywhere, but especially in the liberty movement, is man, I was not as well connected as I thought I was. And the people who were there to offer support and offer kind words, and they were few and far between. And I've always been very, very thankful for you for being one of those people.
Thank you. Oh, that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy.
You good? Well, I figured we'd start it off on a positive note, man. I mean, it's important. Liberty should be a movement of people that bring each other together, lift each other up. And So
I mean,
important.
I mean, that's kind of like I've been feeling really defeated lately because it's like all of the I've lost all of those things. So it's like I see people like you who are working really hard, and then like Josh Smith on the LNC, they're Anthony Welty who ran for Washington Insurance Commissioner, and there's been others that it's just like, and all these really awesome people who are doing all this really cool stuff, and it's like I suck at this, man. I like you guys are doing all this cool stuff, and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like everything that I've wanted to do is falling apart, and now I'm here, and I don't know, like how do you? So how did you go from that struggle when you lost your job and you were looking like what turned the tide? Like what really and how did you hold on to that? Because that's a huge dream to say my next job is going to have purpose, but some like a lot of times it feels like you don't get a huge choice in job. Like not you, but like in general.
No,
like it can be a tough market.
Everyone. Yeah. I mean, hey, don't get me wrong. I would have loved if Google called and said, hey, you want to be the CEO? But you know, it's just not going to happen. When people are struggling, and I first of all, I really appreciate you saying, you know, and being honest about what you're going through, because a lot of people aren't. And especially in 2020, where there's so much negative stuff going on, where the world is a mess, you know, a lot of people are struggling, a lot of people are hurting. And there's also just a lot of negativity out there. My goal with this book and with this community is to lift people up and just help folks recognize that you aren't alone. And finding community, obviously I'd encourage you to join our community and the Work for Liberty community, but there are so many communities out there of people who can help elevate what you're doing or what you want to be doing. For me, it was a real serious evaluation of purpose. And instead of getting into, you know, some of the stuff that I dealt with or what I did, I was very lucky to have good support. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, was incredible and so supportive as I was up late and up early, you know, huddled over my desk, hesitant to turn the heat on because I didn't want to pay for it. But
I've been there.
Yeah, it's a real thing. I mean, if you're nervous to go to the grocery store, which a lot of people are, because you don't want to shell out the money for, you know, the nicer piece of chicken, like it eats away at you, and it's crushing in a lot of ways. But what I want to talk about is a tool to get past that, to get on the other side. And the number one tool that I would recommend is a Japanese phrase called ikigai, Ikigai. And what it is it's actually 4 circles that are overlapping in a Venn diagram that are meant to help you find your purpose in life. That's what ikigai means. It's a concept meaning a reason for being. And it's the combination in these 4 circles of what you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can get paid for. And the reason that I love this tool is because it doesn't just say, hey, here are some important things. It also, it's an analytical tool to actually do some introspection. And it's likely that 1 or 2 of those might be hitting you and hitting many people as, hey, this is what I'm missing, or this is what I should be looking for. And it's nice to be able to put a name to it. And because once you can identify what the problem is, you're already halfway to finding a solution, because then you're looking at targeting something specific, not as I call it, you know, the sense of existential dread that you're left with when there's an ill-defined problem in your life, because that is crushing. And it's something I don't want anybody to have to deal with.
Definitely. So real quick, I've got the Discord scrolling on the bottom. Talk about that a little bit, because that's been really helpful for me. Just even like I've applied for a couple things that you've had there, but it's mostly been really good to see what skills are actually needed. Like what, you know, there's some positions that I just wouldn't fit in yet because I don't have the skills, but I didn't even know what those skills were until this.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously Work for Liberty is a book, right? I needed somewhere to talk about how to do a behavioral interview, how to write a good cover letter, how to put together a resume. But beyond the resource list that's in the paper book, we formed this Discord community. So Discord is a server. It's like Slack, but a little more user-friendly in my opinion. And I launched it really just as a way to post Liberty jobs. I realized that putting a bunch of jobs in a book, they're going to be out of date, right? By the time the thing arrives in the mail, we needed a way to communicate quickly and efficiently with people who cared about Liberty. So this server, I wasn't really sure how it would go. I wasn't really sure if it would be useful, but as of today, we have almost 200 people in this Discord server. And what we do is we post new Liberty jobs every single day, new Liberty internships every single day, Liberty events every single day. And we help each other find these jobs, answer questions. My personal goal is to get 10 people jobs or internships by the end of the year. And I'm hoping that number will be even larger because other people will help each other as well. It's not just me running a Discord. It's a community of people coming together to help each other, which is so important if we want to see Liberty grow.
And to put it into perspective, like a week ago when I joined, it was 75. So it's doubled, really. And it's and really, like, you know, it's not, in my mind, it's not just for people like me who are trying to collect skills and look for jobs. If you're a campaign manager or you work at a think tank or any of those things, there's professionals, people who do this, who are trying to break in, that would probably work for you for less than you would normally pay because they know that they're trying to break in. So that's a great place for people like that to go to and headhunt. Like,
absolutely. Yeah, we're trying to figure. It's actually scaled a little faster than I expected. So we're trying to figure out how to offer services, right? Because we've had people go in there, and the first thing I did was I created like a resumes channel. And then all of a sudden there's people dropping their resumes, and I realized, wow, there's already too many for me to keep track of so that I could tag individuals in jobs and be helpful. Like we're working on a better system. But you hit on something that's really important, which is the diversity of jobs in the Liberty movement. A lot of people think, well, I don't know. I certainly did when I was doing a job search, that you had to be a policy wonk to work in the Liberty movement, right? Oh, it's just a bunch of think tanks out there, and you got to have a PhD in economics, and then you're going to go and you're going to write what? No, man, they need human resources professionals. They need people to work the front desk. They need marketing people like me. They need development, fundraising people. There are so many roles, and there are so many diverse roles. The biggest qualifying factor in the Liberty movement to get a job right now, because the Liberty movement is expanding, especially in the professional sector, is having a true love and passion for liberty. That'll take you a long ways. I did not have any prior experience in the liberty movement in a professional sense, and I got and I landed a director level job. I had a few other things going for me. I have an MBA and those pieces there, but there's such a diversity of jobs at a higher level. It's an amazing area to break into and to really do some good in the world if you care about liberty.
So let me pull that back up. Yeah. Okay. So we have the book link going. So the link is Amazon, or amzn.to/3nebotv. It's where you can go get the book. What was that like to write a book? Because to me, like, that's one of for me, the idea, like, I've thought about writing like a fantasy novel or something because that's the kind of stuff that I read. But the idea of writing a book to me is just like it's such a weird skill set to associate with all the other things that we're talking about here. How did that come about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you got to write that book, man. Like that's the takeaway here is we got to, you get busy doing.
Well,
that's
I figure
awesome.
I'll just stick to doing D&D stuff, and that's kind of my outlet for that.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know that. That's really exciting. I mean, as an author now, right? if I were to say one thing, it's simply to get busy doing. For me, I really thought that the book would just be putting together pieces of these research bits that I'd pulled together from the 6 months that I had spent just searching for jobs. And what it really turned into is trying to talk to a lot of people and recognize what they actually needed out of this, right? So this isn't a novel. I don't think anybody should come to this expecting like, man, Connor's an amazing writer, because that's not what you're going to find. What you're going to find is really practical, to the point information about how to accomplish some really technical skills, and also how to augment some of your soft skills. So it's obviously a little bit different, but the process was simply time invested to make sure that that the end product was what it needed to be to actually help people. That was just a lot of hours pulling things together, and a lot of hours thinking about, if I were a reader taking a look at this, how do all the puzzle pieces fit together to be something comprehensive?
Okay. Is that so it kind of sounds like a bit of a, and I'll be honest, I haven't read it yet. I am planning on picking it up. But so my big purchases come at the beginning of the month. That's where my big check hits.
No, man, you're good. You know what? Send me your DM me your address. I'll mail it to you. I got you.
Okay. Well, is it kind of like a self-help book and like not, and that sounds derogatory, but I mean like is this, if I read this, am I going to understand better the skills that I'm going to need on top of just like where to start looking for these jobs? Or is that going to be like a different book somewhere?
No, that is absolutely part of it. So my job, as I assigned it to myself, was to provide practical info. And when I started pulling this together, one of the big influences in putting it together was my work teaching at the university level. I teach business communications at Lehigh University, and I'm not here representing them in any way, shape, or form. But some of the things that I realized as I was going through putting these resources together is that a lot of the problems that I experienced in my own job search, already having 5 years of work pre-liberty movement under my belt, is no one ever really spent the time to teach me how to handle behavioral interviews, or how to write a great cover letter, or how to examine purpose to make sure that the job that I was seeking wasn't just to pay the bills, but it actually meant something. And it was the same thing that I saw in the freshman students that I teach, is they didn't necessarily have these skills, and no one had taken the time to teach them. So in large part, my class focuses on a lot of those soft skills and hard skills necessary to be successful in the real world.
I wish my school would have worked on that, because I went, like, when I got the job that I have now, they were like, okay, do a cover letter. And I'm like,
yeah,
what's that?
You literally, let me guess, Googled how to write a cover letter, right?
Well, I was, at the time I was working with the VA vocational rehab people. So I called up the Voc rehab lady. I'm like, the hell's a cover letter? And why do they want one?
Yeah.
And she's like, don't you have a business degree now? And I'm like, yeah, but I've never heard of a cover letter.
Right.
And now problem. It's like, how does that not get taught? Because like, as I've started looking at what I would consider real jobs, like, something that you wouldn't necessarily do coming straight out of high school, they all need them. So why isn't that skill there?
It's a huge problem. I mean, we could go on and on about the failings of the American educational system, or take a look at higher education, right? I mean, that's maybe that's another 3 episodes that we could do. But basically, I recognize that problem because I dealt with it. I've always struggled to put together good cover letters because I never felt like I had a solid instruction in what people were looking for. And by the time you get to the point where you need one, man, is there a lot of pressure to make sure that you get it right. That's something that I wanted to fix. And, to a certain extent, I think that anybody, whether you care about liberty or not, there's just some good job seeking tips in here. But for those of you who care about liberty and want to see liberty succeed, it is a must have, because when you're dealing with work that involves principles, when you're involving something that people actually, it hits in their heart in a different way, you really need to make a compelling argument for that being a reality. I mean, you see, are these comments visible?
Yeah, the one
that you popped out. Yeah, with Zig, right? So Zig, like, I know Zig, great guy, and it's fantastic, and I love his story too, because is exactly that. He was a volunteer. He works for Liberty full time. Like, I love seeing that success that he has. And he, I just because we've talked about this, we were sitting next to each other at the governor's State of the State speech last year. He just has a passion for what he does. And it's hard to convey that in paper when you're trying to convince someone that you're the right guy for the job. And I absolutely love that we can put the tools in the tool belt for people to help them be successful. That's the goal. That's what I want to see happen. And, I can't take credit for Zig's success. He did that all on his own, but there's just so many people out there who should be working for liberty. And I'm selfish enough that I want you working for liberty too, because liberty needs more allies getting paid to do this stuff full time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if anything, I think this last election taught us, let's step back a little bit from that. How do you feel about this last election? Because to me, it was like there's this massive record turnout for the other two parties, and not even the other two parties, because like I'm not actually even a libertarian anymore for other reasons, but it's like seeing, like, in my state, they basically put a cap on payday lending, and this passed like 80%. And they put a cap on payday lending because no one understands that the reason payday lending rates are so high is because people don't pay them back.
Right.
And they have to stay, like, these businesses are going to go out of business in Nebraska now.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just like, you look at all these ballot initiatives and all of this, there weren't a lot of victories for us.
The election was demoralizing. It really was. It was a good reminder that now more than ever, the world could use a little bit of liberty, and it could use people doing this on a full-time basis. I mean, there are so many amazing volunteers out there, and I'm sure some of your listenership, if you're watching right now and you just spent, the last 3 or 4 months knocking on doors, you probably find yourself with a lot of free time right now after the election. And I guess I'd want those kind of people to know that, man, there are hundreds and literally thousands of opportunities to work for liberty out there, and you could be getting paid to do the stuff that you were doing for fun. The election was terrible, but at the same time, was it hard times create strong men? Is that this right? That idea, like, now's the opportunity to get your hands dirty and get out there and fight for what you believe in.
There's a bit of conviction there, because I feel like I've kind of failed in that a little bit.
What do you mean by it?
Like I said, I left the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of associations with people anymore, and it's because, like, things got really hard. People mostly, like, there was a lot of conflict, and but at the end of the day, it got hard. And I kind of folded, right? I mean, I'm not doing it. Like, this is the first episode. You're the first episode of this.
I love it.
It's been like 5 months, and I did a podcast with a couple of friends as just kind of a way to de-stress and have a fun podcast. But this is the first, like, I'm back in the saddle doing what I do, and it's with you. So congratulations, you're the first.
Please, congratulations to you. I'm going to promote the heck out of this thing. This is wonderful. Hopefully we can get you a huge listenership.
I mean, to me, it's not even that. I just, like, I feel like the last year or two, like, I've been spinning my wheels and not causing an effect, basically, because um, when I had first gotten involved in the LP and I had first gotten going into podcasting, like even not just the podcasting part, but just in my personal life, I was making connections with people and really promoting the idea of liberty, and it was really resonating with people. Like I turned people libertarian fairly often, and now it's like, and it's probably because of COVID, and then the job that I do being a lot less like I don't deal like I'm doing with people on the phones. There's no way that we're talking about that kind of thing.
Right.
I can't.
Right.
And I'm not talking to coworkers. There's none of that. So it's like I'm feeling like I just haven't done anything useful in a while in that regard.
I feel like, one thing that you hit on that's really important is the idea of conflict, right? And it happens so often, and it's a libertarian trope, especially. I'm a small L libertarian, and this mentality of infighting is constant. And I want to be very clear with your listenership that is not the case everywhere. That is a choice that some people choose to make, but there are communities, there are groups of people who are choosing to voluntarily associate and come together to build amazing things that are built around lifting each other up and creating new products and creating new shows, building companies to pursue liberty and pursue principles. And you do not have to associate with those people who are going to drag you down simply because you feel like the libertarian world isn't big enough. There are many of us out there. And in fact, I would welcome you to reach out to me personally and create a connection. If you can literally not think of one other person who's going to give you positivity in your pursuits, in your career and your goals, reach out to me and I will be there to lift you up and help you find solutions and introduce you to people who can help fix your problems, because that is the kind of change that I want to see in this movement. It's absolutely pivotal to the success of liberty, in my opinion. And that's one of the reasons why this book exists, is because we've all been sick of that kind of mentality.
Yeah,
and it
definitely
just doesn't have to be that way.
Do you think that because like the slogan is always everyone's a libertarian, they just don't know it yet. I don't think that's true. I don't think most people are.
Yeah.
And do you think, like, if we take that as the premise, is it because people don't know? Is it kind of like if you were like a Christian missionary, it would be, well, people don't know yet, that's why they don't embrace it. Or is there just not the desire in people for what we are selling?
I think there's it's a seeing the forest or the trees type problem, right? I'm a big believer that people who care about liberty should lead with an olive branch instead of a sword, right? We should be forging connections across aisles, because we've been pretty consistent. Liberty people, and that's independent of any political party. Liberty is an idea that wins so much of the time. And it's, if you look really the rhetoric around the major pushes of the left and the right are around liberty concepts. They just tweak the meaning of the words to maybe suit their goals a little bit. But that's because the principles, they resonate with people in their hearts. Unfortunately, libertarians, and to a certain extent conservatives, one of the things that we really struggle with is we so often lead with data, right? Oh, if you do X and increase it by Y%, you're going to get Z result. No one cares. What they care about is when Barack Obama got on stage and said, hey, little Susie, by giving her access to the social program, it's only going to cost you 40% of your income, but look at what she's going to get access to. And by the time you hear about this real human being, by the time he gets done with his story, you're like, why can't it be 50%, man? Like, I want little Susie to succeed. But really what they're trying to sell you on both sides is the idea of autonomy, success, the ability to provide for your family. And those are all things that are fundamentally available through liberty. we just need to do a better job of telling these amazing stories based in liberty that are human stories, because we're animals, and that's what we remember is stories, not data.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something I've always said is kind of to piggyback off of that. I like my concept of freedom comes from being a fantasy nerd. It's a big trope in fantasy.
Yeah.
That the evil king that is trampling on everyone's rights has to be defeated by the farm boy with a sword who's just coming to give people freedom. And those things resonate. I just don't understand why people can gravitate to those stories and then go out and vote for Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden.
Yeah, you do. You wouldn't watch Star Wars and say, "Man, I really got like Darth Vader, that guy. Let's emulate what he's doing." Right? That's not reality. That's not what people connect with. One of the things that we can do to fix that, which I think might be useful here, is just identifying where there is common ground. On the left, there are a number of policies that people who care about liberty should absolutely love, right? Criminal justice reform is just becoming a bipartisan issue that we can get some wins on. Conservatives dealing with fiscal responsibility, right? Maybe not so much right now. That's maybe maybe I'm being overly optimistic.
Yeah, there's like 4 of those conservatives.
Yeah, right.
Right now.
Yeah, maybe that's the more traditional one, but something like criminal justice reform is, I guess, the easiest one. Reach out to those people who are passionate about that on the right or the left and build real relationships with them, so that when you go back and you're talking about other issues that are liberty related, it's done so on a foundation of friendship. And so often in politics, it's transactional, which is so unfortunate, because the relationships are surface level, and we miss out on a lot because we're not actually getting depth in our relationships where we can get things done over the course of time. What are we doing right now after the 2020 election? Where's Joe Jorgensen's data, and how is it being used to fight for liberty in the next 4 years? I have no idea, but I can guarantee that Donald Trump, Joe Biden, however this election shakes out in the courts, both the right and the left, that data is going to go to grassroots organizations, lower tier political candidates, and it's going to be used to build the bench and pursue their principles. We got to get on the same page and do something that matters.
Yeah. And so just a kind of an anecdote about what you were talking about with finding allies. I don't know if you saw, but Dan Crenshaw made a post about it's a bad idea to withdraw our troops because we got to fight them over there so they don't come over, because that stupid argument still happens. And someone was commenting underneath saying, like, yeah, we can't withdraw our troops prematurely. That's a recipe for disaster. And I said something about, well, how many decades do we have to go before it's not prematurely anymore? And the likes that I got off of that were from Antifa style people, like Black Flag BLM anarchists.
Yeah.
And it's like, those people and I don't get along. We don't agree on much, but we can agree on this. So maybe we just work on this for now.
Absolutely.
And I think you're right. To me, it's war and criminal justice. Those are the 2 easy ones. And because they're human, they're like, yes, there's an economic component to those things, but it's human tragedy and struggle. That's what makes those 2 issues so easy to resonate about. And I'm a veteran, and also my minor is in criminal justice, so for me, it's super easy to talk about.
Oh, that's low hanging fruit. You're the man for the job, right? Get out. You're out there being an evangelist for these great ideas. That's awesome.
So, I forgot to change the banner. Just a second. Going back to the Discord here. So the Discord, just so everyone is aware, the invite link is discord.gg/HQYGYHJ. This is mostly for the people who are going to listen to the audio feed later, because if you are watching this live or on video format, it's scrolling on the bottom. You can type it in from there.
I'll also do my due diligence and make sure you have the links for your show notes too. If that's something that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll put it. I'll go in back like later. I'll go throw it into the description for the YouTube video and all that. So, So we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. You were saying that you don't want to work on campaigns anymore. What brings that up?
You know, I have found that politics, as I alluded to, I guess just a minute ago, politics is so transactional, and it's so short term. I certainly don't dismiss the importance of it. I think that there's a lot of people out there that can make a tremendous difference in politics. But my goal is to fight for the principles and the policies that can be in place for a much longer time. I truly believe that the solution to so many of our problems is not in our nation's capital. It's not in our state capitals. It's in our communities where we can embody the change that we want to see, and we can remember that our neighbors, our friends, and our family are the ones who create the world that we live in, right? Earth doesn't exist simply because a bureaucrat signed a piece of paper saying that it does. And we just stand so much, we stand to gain so much by being reminded that these are real human people living around us. And that's where we can enact change. And whether that means that, you're bringing a baked good to your neighbor just because you don't know them that well, and that's something that doesn't happen that often, or, you see your neighbor and they need help bringing their groceries inside. I get that it's COVID. I get that that's a tough time to make this a reality. But if there's one thing that I trust in, it is in the creativity of human beings to find solutions to these types of problems. Making those human connections, improving our communities is going to make such a big difference. And I just don't see politics being the true path forward to create the kind of change that I want to see in the world.
That makes sense. So something that I've been thinking about locally. So there were we got marijuana on the ballot this time, and then there was a Nebraska Supreme Court challenge to it, and they threw it off the ballot, with some rather bullshit explanations. So now we're going back again, 2022. We're going to put it back on the ballot and do it a little bit differently so that the court can't throw it out. I've been wanting to get involved in those kinds of things. And on a volunteer basis, because those organizations can't afford people. But I think that if we're going to go the political route, that's probably where we're going to get the most bang for our buck right now.
Yeah. And, to a certain extent, part of winning in policy and winning hearts and minds, it can be involved in politics, partially because whether we remember it or not, and some might argue with me, those politicians are in fact human beings capable of being convinced, right? Like, we can make emotional appeals to these men and women who are elected into these positions. And yeah, it might be an uphill battle, but with something like the freedom for what you put into your body, the freedom to try medical procedures, all of these different liberty-based things that can be accomplished in a state house, those are fights worth having. And I guess maybe I'm undercutting what I just said myself, but maybe don't even think of them as fights. Think of them as, these are the people who work for you. It's about damn time that they started doing what they should be doing in these ivory towers.
Yeah. All right. So is there anything else you want to cover before we go?
Just a huge thank you. And I was very serious. I would love to see more people in the Discord. I would love to be able to help at least 10 people get jobs and internships by the end of the year. And a huge thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure as always.
Well, thank you for coming on and being the first guest on this new show. So I'm Raptor, the Low Castle. This has been Connor. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and I'll see you next week.